What's going on? Kevin was right! Winter is coming and we don't have a man! Oh my God.
And all I have to say is, drizzle, drizzle.
Hey, yo, lesson here, babe. You come at the king, you best not miss.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
What's up, boss? You believe that? Hold on. Oh no. Do you believe that? Huh? Oh no. Ah! Oh no. Come on. Do you believe?
All right, good people. You Dusty Jeffries and Dusty Germains, you Ashley Jeffries, and you Dirty Foot Jose. Okay, we're actually here on the Pedestrian channel. Okay, so all you pedestrians that are out there, okay, welcome. Okay, this channel is for you. This is the it used to be a response channel. It's still a response channel. If I get people to actually respond to, I think they've kind of frittered away. They're not really here anymore. They used, when I was my other channels, when I didn't respond to them, they stuck. Now, man, I guess a good cussing out gets rid of a whole bunch of people. But I want to turn this into more of an educational channel for politics and economics and stuff like that, is because that's not what's talked about on my other channels. And they always say I don't talk enough about this kind of stuff. And the reason I don't is because the other channels are actually for relationships, okay? That's what it's there for. And if you really want the deeper stuff about when I talk about these kind of events, you have to go to my Patreon. But, they're too cheap to pay $3 to be on a Patreon. But they'd rather spend their time going back and forth about stuff they have no clue about. And what this channel is showing them is that they don't know as much as they think they know. Anyhow, this is my I think this is the last one we'll do on the World Economic Forum. It's my last one I'm gonna do on this one. I'm going to go to C-SPAN. We started going to get into what Congress is saying. There's some stuff I want to play from David Schweikert. I'll probably be doing that Monday about the budget and Medicare and stuff like that. And we'll get into the meat and potatoes of domestic politics and stuff like that. So we'll be doing that probably next week. But I want to play about, we'll play Mark Carney's speech at the World Economic Forum, is because a lot of stuff he said has been a lot of stuff that the realists have been saying over the past, 6-7 years, and especially the last 5 since the Ukraine stuff really got started. So a lot of stuff he's saying is being echoed, has been echoed by them for quite a while. So I'm gonna play him, and then I'm gonna play a cut from Mearsheimer, who is the king of structural realism, giving his opinion on it. So this is gonna be educational, okay, for you. It's probably a little highbrow for most people. So if you don't get it, you don't get it. If you don't get it the first time, don't worry about it, because it takes a minute if you're not into this kind of politics, because this is a high level diplomacy, high level politics, high level strategy, okay? And it goes well beyond the meat and potatoes of Congress or your mayor, or even voting patterns, okay? This is global economics at the highest scale. So we're gonna go. That's like I'm trying to get you guys to actually interface with the World Economic Forum and people like that. Is because these are the people that make your decisions globally. Your trade, your money, your infrastructure, your automation, whatever's going to be released. Okay, these are the people that talk about this kind of stuff, and you need to be aware who they are, and at least what their view of the world. So this is Wish I gotta say this is pedestrian friendly, but it is not. Okay. So put on your thinking caps, okay, and listen more than you talk. Because I know a lot of times people in here actually run their mouths way more than they actually listen to what the guy is saying. I want you guys to listen, because if you understood what he was saying, then you wouldn't need to be here sticking around me. You'd be someplace else doing it yourself. Okay. Anyhow, go ahead and get busy. Mello, what's going on? Gundam, Shannon, Free Agent Triple OG. Little Maple Leaf, Navone, the Black Toxic, Daniel, what's happening? Mr. 07, what's going on? H&F, Shannon Green, Shade Tree Therapy, what's going on? Kenneth, what's happening? St. Trayanos, what's going on? DC. Yeah, this is what Dr. Marifa said it's a point one education. Okay, that's what he says. That's how high up we go with this kind of stuff. Forever Blessed, what's going on? Ready Foon, I guess that is. Okay. And LAXT, okay. Got 46 in the building for this little tiny channel. Every like helps. Okay, so drop your like and hit the like button, and because for this kind of stuff, I should be charging a lot more. Okay, this is free, and normally I charge a minimum of $3 for you guys to listen to me actually pontificate on this kind of stuff, and I should be charging $20. Okay, I should be charging $20, at least $20 a month for this kind of crap, but I don't. So take your freebie and enjoy. Okay, this is Mark Carney, from President of the Prime Minister of Canada. At the World Economic Forum, and he is telling people how he feels about America and the way Trump is taking America, okay?
Et je parlerai aujourd'hui de la rupture de l'ordre mondial, de la fin d'une fiction agréable et du début d'une réalité brutale, où la géopolitique des grandes puissances, strong can do what they can, pas l'honnête. Les puissances moyennes comme le Canada ne sont pas impuissants. Ils possèdent la capacité de construire une nouvelle ordre qui intègre nos valeurs, comme le respect des droits humains, le développement durable, la solidarité, la souveraineté et l'intégrité territoriale des États. La puissance des moins puissants commence par l'honnêteté. It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must.
This is exactly what the realists say. That's exactly what Mearsheimer is saying, and a bunch of other realists. They've been saying the exact same thing that he's saying, okay? You got a lot of military realists that are saying the exact same thing. Ritter, all these kind of folks saying the exact same thing that he's saying, okay? The strong are doing what they can, and the weak are doing what they must. Okay, so the great powers are the ones that are now starting to run the world.
And this aphorism of Thucydides is presented as inevitable, as the natural logic of international relations.
The Thucydides trap is when the Greek powers actually fought each other. Okay, that's what he was referring to. There's a book called the Thucydides trap, where two great powers in any region eventually have to come and clash.
Reasserting itself. And faced with this logic, there is a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along, to accommodate, to avoid trouble, to hope that compliance will buy safety. Well, it won't. So what are our options? In 1978, the Czech dissident Václav Havel, later president, wrote an essay called The Power of the Powerless. And in it, he asked a simple question: how did the communist system sustain itself? And his answer began with the greengrocer. Every morning, the shopkeeper places a sign in his window: "Workers of the world unite." He doesn't believe it. No one does. But he places the sign anyway to avoid trouble, to signal compliance, to get along. And because every shopkeeper on every street does the same, the system persists. Not through violence alone, but through the participation of ordinary people in rituals they privately know to be false. Havel called this living within a lie. The system's power comes not from its truth, but from everyone's willingness to perform as if it were true.
In other words, basically what he's saying is great powers can't rule the world if the smaller powers don't band together and oppose it. And it's separately, each shopkeeper, he was saying, has to put that sign in the window for compliance, which is a communist, that's just socialist manifesto. Okay, workers of the world unite. Whether they believe it or not, to actually keep your head down and stay out of trouble. Now, a lot of your smaller countries actually do that. Okay.
And its fragility comes from the same source. When even one person stops performing, when the greengrocer removes his sign, the illusion begins to crack.
Yes.
Friends, it is time for companies and countries to take their signs down. 4 decades.
In other words, what he's saying is they're tired of the American global order. Okay, so the New World Order that started under it really started under FDR and continued under Eisenhower, and then got switched over under Nixon, and then got re-upped under George Bush 1.
For decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we called the rules-based international order. We joined its institutions, we praised its principles, we benefited from its predictability.
Yeah.
And because
Fukuyama called it the end of history, right? Where liberal democracies rule the world, okay? And which Mearsheimer disagrees with.
so that we could pursue values-based foreign policies under its protection. We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically.
Yes.
And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the
Yeah, and so in other words, America can decide whether it's going to follow the international law or not, which is what Trump is doing right now.
accused or the victim. This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window.
Yes.
We participated in the rituals.
Yeah.
And we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality.
Yeah. In other words, even the Chinese were willing to go along with the system as long as the system was stable enough to actually get most of what they wanted out of it, right?
This bargain no longer works.
See? Yeah, like I said, Trump may have taken it too far. That's what he's trying to. Well, Trump and Biden may have taken it too far.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition.
Yes.
Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons.
Yes.
Tariffs as leverage.
Yes.
Financial infrastructure as coercion. Supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited.
Yep, exactly. He's right. He's right, 100% right.
You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
The multilateral
Which is what the BRICS have been saying for quite a while, which is why they're moving over to the BRICS, which is why Canada made a visit to who? Xi Jinping, right?
institutions on which the middle powers have relied, the WTO, the UN, the COP, the architecture, the very architecture of collective problem solving are under threat. And as a result, many countries are drawing the same conclusions, that they must develop greater strategic autonomy in energy, food, critical minerals, in finance, and supply chains. And this impulse is understandable. A country that can't feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. When the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself. But let's be clear-eyed about where this leads. A world of fortresses will be poorer, more fragile, and less sustainable. And there's another truth. If great powers abandon even the pretense of rules and values for the unhindered pursuit of their power and interests, the gains from transactionalism will become harder to replicate. Hegemons cannot continually monetize their relationships. Allies will diversify. They'll hedge against uncertainty. They'll buy insurance, increase options, in order to rebuild sovereignty. Sovereignty that was once grounded in rules but will increasingly be anchored in the ability to withstand pressure. This room knows this is classic risk management. Risk management comes at a price. But that cost of strategic autonomy, of sovereignty, can also be shared. Collective investments in resilience are cheaper than everyone building their own fortresses. Shared standards reduce fragmentations. Complementarities are positive sum. And the question for middle powers like Canada is not whether to adapt to the new reality. We must. The question is whether we adapt by simply building higher walls or whether we can do something more ambitious. Now, Canada was amongst the first to hear the wake-up call, leading us to fundamentally shift our strategic posture. Canadians know that our old, comfortable assumptions that our geography and alliance memberships automatically conferred prosperity and security, that assumption is no longer valid.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Trump let them know. Well, hell, Biden let them know.
And our new approach rests on what Alexander Stubb, the president of Finland, has termed value-based realism. Or to put another way, we aim to be both principled and pragmatic.
Value-based realism. I haven't heard that one before. So in other words, everybody's becoming a realist all of a sudden.
Principled in our commitment to fundamental values, sovereignty, territorial integrity, the prohibition of the use of force except when consistent with the UN Charter, and respect for human rights. And pragmatic in recognizing that progress is often incremental, that interests diverge, that not every partner will share all of our values. So we're engaging broadly, strategically, with open eyes. We actively take on the world as it is, not wait around for a world we wish to be. We are calibrating our relationships so their depth reflects our values. And we're prioritizing broad engagement to maximize our influence, given the fluidity of the world at the moment, the risks that this poses, and the stakes for what comes next. And we are no longer just relying on the strength of our values, but also the value of our strength.
So in other words, they're getting ready to, they have to cut a deal, okay? They have to cut a deal with other partners because the old framework doesn't work anymore.
Building that strength at home.
Yeah, the United States and Europe are declining, so everybody's got to hit the barriers and find a new way of operating.
Since my government took office, we have cut taxes on incomes, on capital gains, and business investment. We have removed all federal barriers to interprovincial trade. We are fast-tracking $1 trillion of investments in energy, AI, critical minerals, new trade corridors, and beyond. We're doubling our defense spending by the end of this decade, and we're doing so in ways that build our domestic industries. And we are rapidly diversifying abroad. We've agreed a comprehensive strategic partnership with the EU, including joining SAFE, the European Defence Procurement Arrangements. We have signed 12 other trade and security deals on 4 continents in 6 months. In the past few days, we've concluded new strategic partnerships with China and Qatar. We're negotiating free trade pacts with India, ASEAN, Thailand, Philippines, and Mercosur.
Yeah, they're cutting their own deals instead of the old former blocks are disappearing.
Sure. We're doing something else.
In other words, white power is evaporating very quickly, and everybody's got to find a safe haven because white European power is going away. In other words, white supremacy is what, folks? D-E-A-D, dead. Okay? That's what he's basically saying. White supremacy is dead. American power is waning. European power is gone. So we're going to have to cut deals where we can. In other words, we're all equal, right? Okay? What does Spock say? Okay? What does Spock say?
Sauce for the goose, Mr. Savick. The odds will be even.
Sauce for the goose. The odds are even now. All over the world.
To help solve global problems, we're pursuing variable geometry. In other words, different coalitions for different issues based on common values and interests. So on Ukraine, we're a core member of the Coalition of the Willing and one of the largest per capita contributors to its defense and security. On Arctic sovereignty, we stand firmly with Greenland and Denmark and fully support their unique right to determine Greenland's.
In other words, they're going to side with what's left of Europe.
Future.
So there goes what we call Pax Americana. Okay, so he's saying that he's not going to cooperate with Trump with this American shield. Okay, so
Our commitment to NATO's Article 5 is unwavering. So we're working with our NATO allies, including the Nordic-Baltic 8, to further secure the alliance's northern and western flanks, including through Canada's unprecedented investments in over-the-horizon radar, in submarines, in aircraft, and boots on the ground, boots on the ice. Canada strongly opposes tariffs over Greenland and calls for focused talks to achieve our shared objectives of security and prosperity in the Arctic. On plurilateral trade, we're championing efforts to build a bridge between the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the European Union, which would create a new trading bloc of 1.5 billion people. On critical minerals, we're forming buyers clubs anchored in the G7 so that...
In other words, they're going to cut their own deal with China, okay? Instead of siding with the United States, as far as the China trade and stuff like that, they're going to cut their own deals, okay? In other words, Trump basically threw Europe under the bus, so Canada is going to side with Europe.
The world can diversify away from concentrated supply. And on AI, we're cooperating with like-minded democracies to ensure that we won't ultimately be forced to choose between hegemons and hyperscalers. This is not naive multilateralism, nor is it relying on their institutions. It's building coalitions that work, issues by issue, with partners who share enough common ground to act together. In some cases, this will be the vast majority of nations. What it's doing is creating a dense web of connections across trade, investment, culture, on which we can draw for future challenges and opportunities. Argue the middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu.
Ooh.
But I'd also say the great...
if we're not at the table, we're on the menu, okay? Interesting.
powers.
What is the odds of EU going to war with the U.S. if you can answer here? 0.
Great powers can afford, for now, to go it alone. They have the market size, the military capacity, and the leverage to dictate terms. Middle powers do not. But when we only negotiate bilaterally with a hegemon, we negotiate from weakness. We accept what's offered. We compete with each other to be the most accommodating. This is not sovereignty. It's the performance of sovereignty while accepting subordination. In a world of great power rivalry, the countries in between have a choice: compete with each other for favor, or to combine to create a third path with impact.
So that's what they're saying now, okay? In other words, you got Russia, you got the BRICS, you got the America, and you need a third way. So can the white people in the middle, what's called the middle powers, come together and make a third block? We'll see, right?
We shouldn't allow the rise of hard power to blind us to the fact that the power of legitimacy, integrity, and rules will remain strong if we choose to wield them together. Which brings me back to Havel. What does it mean for middle powers to live the truth? Well, first, it means naming reality. Stop invoking rules-based international order as though it still functions as advertised. Call it what it is: a system of intensifying great power rivalry where the most powerful pursue their interests using economic integration as coercion.
That is true. That is true. That's what's going on right now.
It means acting
You're looking at it with the silver market as we speak, right?
consistently, applying the same standards to allies and rivals. When middle powers criticize economic intimidation from one direction but stay silent when it comes from another, we are keeping the sign in the window. It means building what we claim to believe in. Rather than waiting for the old order to be restored, it means creating institutions and agreements that function as described. And it means reducing the leverage that enables coercion. That's building a strong domestic economy. It should be every government's immediate priority. And diversification internationally is not just economic prudence, it's a material foundation for honest foreign policy, because countries earn the right to principled stands by reducing their vulnerability to retaliation. So Canada. Canada has what the world wants. We are an energy superpower. We hold vast reserves of critical minerals. We have the most educated population in the world. Our pension funds are amongst the world's largest and most sophisticated investors. In other words, we have capital, talent. We also have a government with immense fiscal capacity to act decisively. And we have the values to which many others aspire. Canada is a pluralistic society that works. Our public square is loud, diverse, and free. Canadians remain committed to sustainability. We are a stable and reliable partner in a world that is anything but. A partner that builds and values.
He's actually making an appeal to the EU that they're coming out of America's orbit, and he's actually laying out what they have to offer to Europe.
Relationships for the long term. And we have something else. We have a recognition of what's happening and a determination to act accordingly. We understand that this rupture calls for more than adaptation. It calls for honesty about the world as it is. We are taking the sign out of the window. We know the old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy. But we believe that from the fracture, we can build something bigger, better, stronger, more just. This is the task of the middle powers. The countries that have the most to lose from a world of fortresses and the most to gain from genuine cooperation. The powerful have their power. But we have something too. The capacity to stop pretending, to name reality, to build our strength at home, and to act together. That is Canada's path. We choose it openly and confidently, and it is a path wide open to any country willing to take it with us. Thank you very much.
And see, Europe. Now, did Trump get that kind of a standing ovation? No, he did not. Okay, everybody knows what they're talking about. Okay, but Canada said we're getting off the bus. Okay, I think Mexico is doing the same thing when they close the silver mines. Okay, in other words, they said we're getting off the bus.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister. I don't think I've seen many standing ovations at Davos, so that was interesting. You said, there was a phrase in your speech where you said sovereignty now is the ability to withstand pressure. Isn't Canada almost uniquely vulnerable to pressure because of the extent of your trade dependence on the United States?
Well, the proof is that we have been able to withstand the pressure, and there has been considerable pressure. I'll give you a couple of facts. We've actually created more jobs since the tariffs were put on than the United States, in absolute number. Economy is growing at the second fastest rate within the G7. That's not there are pockets of extreme pressure without question in Canada. But headline, we're reacting. The second thing, and it's a fundamental point, is the recognition that we can give ourselves far more than any foreign country can take away. There's lots of efficiencies in having one Canadian market, the $1 trillion of domestic investment, and building these partnerships abroad, all of which are bigger returns than what's been lost. That's not to say we would rather not lose it, but we can withstand the pressure, and we are.
And I was interested that you said basically the old world's not coming back. So you're not seeing this as a period where you just have to get through and normalcy will return. I think
that is our view, and we regret it, but we're not going to sit around and mourn it. We're acting, and we're acting in a way both that's in our interests, but we believe in a way with others that's building imperfectly in steps a new system. I'll give you one example and hand back, which is we are members of trade agreements that comprise already 1.4 billion people around the world. So we have the most extensive network. We are trying with others to bring some of those networks together. The most prominent example is the Trans-Pacific Partnership in the EU, acting as a bridge. It's not a direct benefit for Canada, but it is a benefit for Canada.
The TPP is fairly dead, okay? So I don't know what we're talking about there, but we'll see.
These groups come together, and Ngozi is here, consistent with the WTO rules, both of which are, and in that way we're building back out amongst willing partners.
And you talked about the need not to put the sign in the window anymore, to pretend that things are still the same. Do you think, to put it directly, that the NATO alliance is still doing that, still pretending it's the old transatlantic partnership, when it's really kind of going?
Well, I think clearly NATO is experiencing a test right now, and the first response to that test has to be to respond in a way that ensures the security of the Arctic, in a robust way for all possibilities. This is actually a point that we have been making in recent years. It's a point that I made at the NATO summit back in June, which seemed like a pledging summit, but also was to get NATO policies in the right direction. So I think in the immediate term, one of the imperatives is to reinforce things that Canada is doing, Nordic Baltic 8 are doing, the UK are doing, other NATO partners, France included, in a comprehensive way, that provides much greater security in the Arctic. This is the test, and so I wouldn't say the NATO sign stays in the window, but we've got to meet the moment of that.
You also, a big theme of your speech was the need for middle powers to work together. But you've just been to the other great power, to China. And I think people are very intrigued by seeing that meeting. And some people say, kind of, that's a mistake, really, because, you're going to make yourself more dependent on China. They're not that benign either. The US will be very annoyed. What's the defense of what you're doing, and what do you have to get out of it?
Well, the first thing is to say it's not a defense. It's an I know the way you frame the question, but it's offense. It's building out. It's something positive as opposed to against. We're for something as opposed to being against. The second is, there are very clear guardrails in that relationship. I spoke of calibration of relationships in my remarks. That's what I mean by it. But within those clear guardrails are huge opportunities in energy, both clean and conventional, obviously in motor vehicles, in agriculture, in financial services, all of which is mutually beneficial. So it's additive. And look, it's the second largest economy and it's our second largest trading partner. We should have a strategic partnership with them within those guardrails, and that's what we've achieved.
And it is an interesting reversal, though, because I think certainly during the Biden administration, there was this sense that the Western world was trying to decouple from China, or de-risk at least. Yeah. And is now in this new world that really going to go into reverse, and de-risking from China because there are other risks is less of a...
They can read the tea leaves just like everybody else, okay? And I think Trump is accelerating things, whether we like it or not, okay? He didn't start it, but he's accelerating this. So, like I said, when I say the Joker's in Gotham, okay? Joker's in Gotham. He's going to accelerate things and stress test a lot of things. So a lot of stuff that's been kind of lounging around and people kind of put up with, okay? He's going to say it's put up or shut up time. That's Trump.
A thing.
You need, again, many in this room, this is their livelihood, you need a web of connections. And to miss out in that web some of the largest ones, United States, we already have that, China, India, Mercosur, European Union, that's a mistake. That's not managing your relationships properly. That makes you stronger, makes you more resilient. And then on top of that, I'll give you again, I'll appeal since it's in the headlines to the Nordics. Nordics plus Canada, it's 20% of global GDP. It's not the first thing people would realize. But that relationship, which is deepening for security reasons, because we're like-minded, those are the types of partnerships that I think we'll see more of.
And you got a round of applause when you said something strong about standing on principle on Greenland. Do you think we can find an off-ramp on that? I mean, I'm sure you'll speak of it, but put it this way, if there isn't an off-ramp, where does this go?
I strongly believe that there's a better outcome that come from the discussions that have been catalyzed in an unusual way, admittedly, but and we absolutely stand by the principles that I referenced. That solution starts with security, and a security, yes, of Greenland, but more broadly of the Arctic. Canada is foursquare contributing to that. We're at the start of a major ramp up above and beyond, so we'll be a major contributor to that. NATO has to deliver on that. We're working intensively in order to do it. As well, prosperity.
Cuba's going through the same stuff it's been going through since 1959, okay? It's not going to collapse.
For the people of Greenland. In the end, it comes back to the people there, and there are opportunities to do that in ways that would strengthen all of the alliance.
And when President Trump says, Greenland's under threat from Russia, even from China, is that for real?
I would say that there are threats. Russia is without question a threat in the Arctic, without question. Russia does lots of horrible things, and I'll take the opportunity to condemn their unjustified and horrific assault on Ukraine, almost at its fourth year. They are a real threat in the Arctic, one against we need to protect, which is why we have 365-day air, sea, and land presence. It's why we're adding to our submarine fleet, adding to our air fighter fleet, why we're building out over-the-horizon radar to protect from Russian missile threats and others, and why we will work with our NATO partners. The threat is more prospective than actual at this stage in terms of actual activity in the Arctic, and we intend to keep it that way.
Another big issue that's going to come up this week is this board of peace that President Trump is keen on. I'm not sure whether it's for Gaza or for the entire world, but apparently Canada's been invited. Are you going to join?
We have been invited, and let me start by, I think we should recognize the progress that has been made in at least getting towards the end of the first phase of this process, and the activation, if I can put it that way, of the process to set up the Board of Peace is the start of phase 2. Our view is, and that's to be welcomed, and this is a positive vehicle. Our view is we need to work on the actual structure of the vehicle. You just referenced, is it for Gaza? Well, the UN resolution, Security Council Resolution 2803, references a border peace for Gaza. That's where we see it becoming immediately operative, and it needs to be, in our view, it's better to be designed in that way for the immediate needs there. There are many other needs around the world, first point. Second point, it needs to coincide with the immediate full flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. We are still not where we need to be. Conditions still are horrific. So that needs to come alongside. We think there's aspects of the governance and the decision-making process that could be improved.
They're clearly getting in bed with the EU. So that's what he's saying. That's why he's there. They're clearly siding with the EU in their agenda. So, in other words, if the United States wants to go it alone and do the Pax Americana thing, they had to do it without them.
But we will work with others, obviously work with the United States, because we will do anything that we can to improve the situation, the horrific situation there, and to move onto a path to a true two-state solution.
There's a suggestion you can get permanent membership of the Board of Peace by ponying up $1 billion. You going to write a check for that?
We would write checks and deliver in kind to improve the welfare of the people of Palestine. But we want to see it delivered direct to those outcomes promoting peace, and so the mechanics and how it works that way.
Okay, final question. President Trump and a lot of people who agree with him condemn globalism a lot. And I suspect, you would be the kind of epitome of a globalist. You worked for Goldman Sachs, I believe. You were a central banker. Okay. You're comfortable and lived in several countries. Is globalism, first of all, is it a thing? And is it over?
I think, well, look, understanding how the world works, having appreciation for other cultures, understanding the connections, and being able to, or at least appreciating ways that how we connect, whether it's through technology, trade, investment, culture, can enrich our lives, and that's a good thing, and also help solve problems. Being detached from where you live and the broader needs of society, there is an epithet for that. I don't know that the G word is the one. There's certainly what we're finding, to go back to the points I was making, is that there are a number of like-minded countries that want to work through partnership to achieve those goals for their citizens and for the world more broadly. The call is for more to recognize what's really going on right now and to pool their resources to the benefit of citizens. So it won't be global, it won't cover the globe, but it will be more powerful.
Okay, Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed.
Well, yeah. JD, you got to remember the audience that he's in front of, okay? You got to remember the audience that he's in front of. He's making an appeal to Europe. He's putting throwing the gauntlet down that he's not with the United States tossing the other white people under the bus. That's what he's talking about right now. Okay. The next one we're going to go into is Mearsheimer's response to Carney's speech. Okay, because Mearsheimer has been talking. What Carney is speaking, Mearsheimer has been saying for quite some time. So we're going to get his response to Carney's speech. Okay.
Fictions that belied it. Why don't we take a listen and we'll get your reaction.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must. And faced with this logic, there is a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along, to accommodate, to avoid trouble, to hope that compliance will buy safety. Well, it won't. And the question for middle...
Yes, Jen is just right within his morning tax, okay? What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc? I'll talk to you, was it Sunday? Is Sunday good for you? I know you're busy, but is Sunday good for you? But this is his speech is. We, there's a lot of people in Europe that feel the same way that Carney does, but he's saying that's why he used the shopkeeper sign in the window, right? Somebody's got to do it first, and he's the one that's daring to do it first. We'll see who actually see who follows. And for him being from Goldman Sachs, evidently he does not feel the same way that Goldman Sachs and those other kind of people do not feel the same way that Trump does. So. He wouldn't answer the globalist question.
Powers like Canada is not whether to adapt to the new reality. We must. The question is whether we adapt by simply building higher walls or whether we can do something more ambitious. In a world of great power rivalry, the countries in between have a choice: compete with each other for favor or to combine to create a third path with impact. We shouldn't allow the rise of hard power to blind us to the fact that the power of legitimacy, integrity, and rules will remain strong if we choose to wield them together.
Professor, your reaction to that speech in the context of this Greenland situation that now may have appeared to be resolved, but the tactics and the rhetoric from the Trump administration cannot be taken back?
Well, you want to remember that Mark Carney is the Prime Minister of Canada, and President Trump referred to his predecessor as the governor of the 51st state of the United States. And he's made it clear, President Trump, that he has his gun sights on Canada as well as on Greenland, although Greenland's getting all the attention these days. So Carney is well aware of what he's dealing with. And Carney made what I think is in many ways a brilliant speech that made it clear that he understands that Trump represents a fundamental threat to the so-called Western order or the rules-based order. If you listen to most European leaders, they want to accommodate Trump. They think that by appeasing Trump, they can get Trump to play ball with them. I think Carney fully understands, and quite correctly, that that's a wrong way to deal with Trump. Trump is interested basically in wrecking NATO. Trump is not interested.
Trump is anti-NATO. That's very true. Okay, that's why Carney is appealing to NATO.
In having good relations with the Europeans, and he has a huge amount of power, and he's going to use that, number one, to take Greenland, and number two, to do great damage to the Western Alliance, which he has little use for. And basically what Carney was doing was spelling that out. He was telling brutal truths to the audience at Davos, and that's basically what's going on there.
Do you think that this whole Greenland episode has been an effective wake-up call for European leaders as well?
Yes, I think there's no question about that. The key point here is that Denmark effectively owns Greenland, or to put it in more benign terms, Greenland is in effect part of Denmark. And Trump, until yesterday, was threatening to use military force to take Greenland away from Denmark and make it part of the United States. If that were to happen, that would be one NATO member, the United States, effectively going to war against another NATO member. This is really quite shocking. Of course, you want to understand that before all of this hullabaloo about Greenland, all sorts of frictions had arisen within the alliance. Ukraine is a really good example. The Europeans and the Trump administration have long been doing battle over how to deal with Ukraine.
Yeah, Trump is still pissed off that Europe stepped in and thwarted his deal between Zelensky and Putin. So the EU, and then the neocons inside Congress actually thwarted that.
Trump is fed up with the Europeans for resisting his efforts to try to strike a deal with Putin. So when you look at that past history regarding Ukraine, you can understand why Trump is willing to play hardball with the Europeans, and he's willing to, facilitate some sort of divorce across the Atlantic Ocean.
Mm-hmm. Professor, in the context of your overall work and looking at this, how do you see a, quote, new world order emerging as a result, not just of this action, but of the broad spectrum of what Donald Trump has now done in his first year in office?
Well, I think you want to realize that there's sort of...
Okay, Doc. If Saturday works better for you, since I do need you on this call. Okay, I'll switch it up for you. Okay.
Two dimensions to Trump's foreign policy. One is the great power politics dimension, and that's how he deals with Russia and how he deals with China. And in terms of U.S.-China relations, things are actually quite calm these days. There's not a lot of trouble in East Asia. And with regard to the Russians, Trump is doing everything he can to foster good relations with the Russians. So in terms of great power politics, where we have this multipolar world, where we've moved from unipolarity to multipolarity, you don't see a lot of trouble between the United States under President Trump and the Russians and the Chinese.
It's because Trump, in Trump's mind, okay, white supremacy over the rest of the globe is done, okay? So Trump is about trying to protect what he can. In other words, he said he's looking at the cards. The white folks don't have the cards anymore. The world is already gone. To Trump, the world's already gone, okay? So what he's trying to do is shore up for the United States what he can. That's like he's not, Hegseth and Galbert have already told him that China and Russia are off the table. Okay, Iran will be off the table in a minute. So, but the thing is, Europe is not willing to accept their willingness to actually take second place because they don't have any power. Which Canada is now siding with Europe in that domain. Okay, in other words, okay, if it's between the BRICS and the United States, world order, then the middle powers, as he calls them, which is the EU and Canada, are going to have to find their own way out of this, okay? Because you're not going to get any help from the United States anymore.
On the other side, it's with middle-sized and smaller countries where Trump is really ruffling feathers and where you see Trump behaving in quite radical ways. So that, he's picking on countries like Canada, he's picking on countries like Venezuela, Iran, he's threatening to take Greenland, he's playing hardball with the Europeans. And this is not great power politics. Trump is a very smart man in the sense that he understands that he cannot beat up on the Chinese or on the Russians. He has to work out some sort of modus vivendi with them, at least for the time being. But for weaker countries, middle-sized countries, including allies, and smaller countries, including allies, he's willing to play hardball with them. He's willing to whipsaw them. And this is what you see taking place today.
So if you have Prime Minister Mark Carney sort of ripping the mask off the Western-led order and acknowledging, I think, what is now the present reality that, that is dead or dying, that we're moving into something different. What are the possibilities for what that something different looks like, and what are the implications specifically for America?
Well, if you listen to Mark Carney speak, he believes that these middle powers can pursue a third way and that they can form a non-aligned movement. He believes, and he says this very clearly, that these middle-range powers can create their own institutions. And in that regard, I think he's wrong. It's great powers that create institutions. It's great powers that create international orders. And countries like Canada have remarkably little maneuver room. So I think he's wrong in thinking that he can do that. Now, with regard to what the international order looks like moving forward, it is important to understand that President Trump is taking a sledgehammer to the international order. If you think about NATO, he is, I think, trying to wreck NATO. He has no interest in maintaining NATO. He has little interest in the alliance. But also, he's now putting forward this Board of Peace. And as many people have argued, the Board of Peace is basically now become a substitute for the United Nations. He has no use for the United Nations either. And of course, he recently withdrew from 66 international organizations. It's really quite amazing. So you see that President Trump, as Mark Carney makes clear, is a wrecking ball when it comes to the international order.
Yes.
And then when you start thinking about what's going to replace these institutions that he's wrecking, what is the new international order going to look like? It's quite clear that to the extent President Trump is interested in international institutions, he wants international institutions that he runs. This whole subject of the Board of Peace is really quite remarkable. It started out as an institution that was designed to facilitate a peace agreement, a peace accord in Gaza. It's now morphed into this international institution, at least in his mind, that he runs. And he sees it as a replacement for the United Nations. This is not going to work. This is not going to be a meaningful international institution. So I think, given that President Trump is going to be in power for 3 more years, international institutions are not going to have a whole heck of a lot of effect on how international politics is conducted. That's not to say they're going to be irrelevant, but as long as he's in power and as long as the United States remains so powerful relative to all the other countries in the world, international law and international institutions are probably going to matter less than they have, at least since 1945.
You know, Professor, at the time when we were talking about great power politics and this embrace of the Don Road Doctrine, as he would call it, with Venezuela, some element at least of realism, we also saw this bizarre emergence not even 2 weeks ago of complete neoconservative ideology with this idea that we could just bombard the Iranian regime as a result of their alleged crackdown on protesters. And the president seems absolutely committed, to this idea that if the Iranian regime executes some protesters, that would immediately bring about the bombing of the entire country. He doubled down on this in a recent interview. Let's take a listen.
There are reports that they're still burning thousands of protesters alive. They also issued an assassination threat against you over the weekend. I know that you can't talk about what's on the table, but what is your response to Iran's leadership in the regime continuing to taunt you, threaten you, especially given over the weekend you said it's time for new leadership in Iran?
Well, they shouldn't be doing it, but I've left notification. Anything ever happens, we're going to blow the whole country is going to get blown up. So we've, originally Biden should have said something, when they made a statement. We always said, why isn't Biden saying anything? Because he didn't. But a president has to defend a president. Like if I were here and they were making that threat to somebody, not even a president, but somebody like they did with me, I would absolutely hit them so hard. But I have very firm instructions. Anything happens, they're going to wipe them off the face of this earth.
What do you make of this, sir? The American right is trying to tie this to some alleged assassination attempt, but, again, the preemption is this crackdown on protesters. It just seems so totally out of step with any sort of realism or, great power understanding and a complete fantastical embrace.
Well, it's very important to understand that this is Israel and the United States working together. Number one, to topple the regime in Tehran, and number two, to break the country apart, the way we, the Israelis and the Turks, broke apart Syria. And the real trouble started in late December of last year. That's December 2025, when protests started in Iran. And we played a key role in fueling those protests. Mm-hmm. And the idea was that the protests would turn violent, and we had agents and the Israelis had agents inside of Iran.
Yeah, it was a structured color revolution that failed, which is why it's off the table. But I just wanted to play his interpretation of Mark Carney's speech and show you exactly, give the exact interpretation from a realist standpoint about what Mark Carney is saying, okay, and what Mark Carney's up against, which is why NATO and Europe were actively donated money against the Trump campaign. It's because they knew that Trump was anti-NATO. And Trump, as somebody said, Trump is an isolationist, which he actually is. Okay, he's talking about reshoring United States companies and stuff like that, and loosening the bonds with China. Okay, people like Mearsheimer would love to attack China because they said, okay, they're the great power they have to go up against. But Hexeth and other people said that's off the table. So this is the next best thing, which is actually to separate the Western Hemisphere, which is the United States and Latin America, from China, and let China have the rest of the world. Anyhow, that's about my hour, okay, for my pedestrians, okay. Go back and research Mearsheimer. He's all over the place. In fact, he's in the last week he's done about 4 or 5 interviews, okay, on YouTube. His primary thing's on YouTube now. He's written about about 10 books, and he's a professor emeritus at the University of Chicago, and he's part of the Council of Foreign Relations, all that kind of crap. So he's a high muckety-muck. So research him, research his theory on realism, okay? And it goes right along with the other realists, which is McGregor, which is Colonel Wilkerson, and a few others, right? Which are actually in the realist camp to varying degrees. But I just want you guys to get an idea of what Carney is saying and politicians tend to use platitudes and hide stuff, whereas analysts like Mearsheimer will tell you exactly what he said and exactly why he said it. So, without further ado, let me put my icon back up there. Without further ado, okay, this will end my pedestrian session. Okay, I don't think anybody has anything else. Otherwise, I will drop the link. Dr. Brief, if you want to come up, man, I'll drop the link for you. I don't know if you're still here. I have a few minutes, so if you want to come up and say a few words, you can. If not, we'll do it another time. Because I don't think Art New Style's on tonight, so I do have a few minutes. I hope this can be settled. I read that Alberta mostly only has heavy crude, which is either the same or similar to what it has, and infrastructure is set up for that which America needs. I think they're using Alberta as a crowbar, okay, to get Canada to comply, which I think it was Bush. That was Bush. It was Clinton. Years ago, they did the same thing with Ontario. Was it Ontario? I think it was Ontario. Ontario? Yeah, I think it was Ontario. They did the same thing in 95, 96, something like that. So it's not unusual. And I think Bessent is driving it, because Bessent actually did mention Alberta during his speech when he actually did the at the World Economic Forum. So times are changing. Times are definitely changing. Okay, I'll drop. If you want to come up, Doc, I'll give you a few minutes. I can drop the link, and you can come up and give me your thoughts, since you have to deal with these people. But what Carney said goes right along with what Mearsheimer's saying. Okay, and I've been saying that forever. Okay, there's been a rivalry between the NATO powers and Trump. Well, even going back his first term. Okay, like Trump is not a Western European. He's not a Western European liberal. Okay, he's a Prussian. That's like him and Putin get along very well. And NATO's too expensive, and they're kind of stodgy, and they're not as protectionist as he is. So he wants to dump them. He would prefer to dump them. I don't know if they're useless, but the thing is, our dealings with NATO has been, I wouldn't say strained, but you have to understand it. Okay. A lot NATO was extended because the United States wanted economic power over Europe, and that's one way. That was one way to do it. So the money we spend in NATO there's two reasons. One, to keep them from fucking starting another world war, which they tend to do, and the second thing is to keep a collar around them, and that's what Nixon did in '71. That's what Nixon did in '71. Give the doc a few more minutes. If he doesn't want to come up, I'm gonna bounce out of here. And we can actually do it another time, maybe tomorrow or something like that. But I just want to give you guys a peek into what's going on. Now that's a peek into what's going on at the high levels around the world. And trust, there is no higher level than what you just heard. Okay. You just heard the president of Canada give a speech. Okay, you can't go no higher than that. Okay, you heard the richest people in the world the other night talk about economics and trade and stuff like that. Can't go no higher than that. Okay, Donald Trump. You heard a whole bunch of people lay out a whole bunch of stuff at the top level amongst their peers. Okay, cannot get any higher. When they talk this shit, okay, they have to talk real dope. They can't talk that BS they give us. Is because they're amongst their peers. That's why I always say, check out the World Economic Forum. There he is. What up, Doc?
Hey, strong coffee this morning.
You keeping these white people sane, man? I was saying earlier in the week, man. I've been watching the World Economic Forum since 2004 or 5. Okay,
Yes.
and I have never seen these rich ass white people so scared in my life.
Well, this is have you watched the video for these Kool and the Gang song, Summer Madness,
Yes.
1974?
Yeah.
There's that dude with the sunnies, with the
Yes.
sunglasses who just
Yeah.
chills.
Yes.
Yes, that's how I'm feeling right now. Whenever
Oh yeah. Oh, you like cool. You on the base and you just sitting back. Huh?
I'm just sitting back right now because at this point, it's a momentous moment. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
We live in a period where they're literally at odds in terms of A, having a grasp of what's going on, and B, just throwing anything on the wall, right?
Well, you're gonna break some nails if you're trying to you're trying to keep from sliding down that wall. So you're gonna break some nails.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a huge sort of historical imperative because the guys who are putting the pressure have all sorts of historical reasons to do so. So it's one of those things where it's like a mixture of reckoning and denial and sort of entitlement that's not working. So.
Yeah. What I'm saying, I look in their eyes, it's like shit. Could this be over? I was looking.
That's a good question.
I was looking at Jamie Dimon, and I'm looking at all these other people. And normally those people like what's her name? She was over. She's from France. She's actually over the ECB for a while. What's her name?
Lagarde.
Lagarde, right? Lagarde was. You could hear it in her voice. She's scared shitless, man.
Yes.
They're scared shitless about what's going on. Okay. And
Yes.
and they have no because they have no answers, man. In fact, I heard I think I forget who said it. He said the World Economic Forum is going to have to figure out how to become relevant again. Okay, I've never heard them say that before.
Oh yeah,
these are the most arrogant bastards on the planet. I have never seen them like this. Okay? I could be wrong. Hey, don't shoot me. But that was my opinion for y'all with y'all for a long time. Okay.
He said it, not me.
I know. I said it. Okay.
Said it.
I said it, and all of a sudden they got that look like we're human again. Okay. I haven't seen this.
Winter is coming.
I think it's here. Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. It's one of those things where the center of gravity has shifted from regardless of what happens, particularly for Europe, and what Carney was talking about, the middle powers. So these are the Australias, the sort of white middle powers. That's what he means.
It said they've gone from the dominant powers to the middle powers now. So.
Yeah, well, it used to be more like if you have the dinner table, right, and then the United States sits at the head.
Yes.
The dinner table, but they were tacking along that sort of continuity. That's why for the Europeans, they see the United States as an extension of themselves because
right.
Historical ties. But this is the first time when they're facing the prospect of literally, the United States being separate.
Yes.
And that is as tough psychologically and emotionally as I don't know what would be a comparison. Like it's a very personal thing.
Yeah.
Like right now. That's why I substituted my technical chops for my psychiatrist chops or
yeah.
psychologist chops or something.
Yeah, says Andres, do you think Trump will follow through on these tariffs of Greenland or Canada working with China? Trump, like I said, he's a joker, so it's very difficult to tell. I think he will, though. Uh, Limit. I
Yeah,
think he already put tariffs on Denmark and Switzerland and people like that. So he already has. But the thing is, how long will they last? We don't know because Trump can change his mind at any moment. So very difficult to say.
yeah, and he's already sanctioned European countries anyway. So,
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
not sanctioned, sorry,
Yeah,
tariff.
yeah. The front wheels have driven over them already, so we're just waiting for the back wheels to drive over them too. So
Yeah, so this is not really, and for and this is what the Europeans. I used to tell them, before the election,
hmm
particularly after Butler, I was telling them, hey, listen, this TDS thing is going to
yes,
put you in the wrong position when he comes in. This is the point where you keep quiet, don't talk too much.
hmm
But they never believe because there's this attitude of lesser beings, right?
uh,
The deplorables thing.
yeah,
Remember,
yes, yeah,
is a very strong attitude around that because it's not just because of Trump himself, which they can sort of understand, but also it's because of this idea. They attach that to this, let's say, push against global feminism and stuff like that.
yeah.
And they say these are the lesser beings,
hmm
right? These so-called uneducated people, blue
Yeah,
collar,
yeah, yeah.
all that stuff is
The,
connected.
the, the unwashed masses, yes.
Yes, they are
Yeah.
unwashed masses, and a lot of the people who are at the head of European systems, because we know with the US, we know how the system works.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people in the European systems, as you know, but just for the audience, for those who don't, are basically like scions of, old either monarchies, aristocracies, or
Yes. Yeah.
clubs.
Yeah.
And I know those clubs. So, Europe is a very, very feudal, monarchist cultural system.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just been modified a bit by liberalism. That's all.
Yes,
Yeah, but still there.
but
Yeah.
it's still there. You go to Britain, it's very obvious.
Yeah.
You can go to Germany, you'll see it, although not as clearly as, let's say, in Britain,
Yes.
and so on and so forth. So yes, the fear is real, and particularly because the fear is coming from, the southern hemisphere powers, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So for China, for example, what China represents is almost like the reckoning
Yes.
because of what they did, right?
Yes.
It's almost as if what in the United States you can compare to what Reconstruction and Tulsa represented, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If you allow, what's going to happen to us, kind of thing. If you allow enfranchisement of, the community, as you
Yes.
as you like to say it. Right? Yeah, so there's that undertone that animates that fear, just like Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
South Korea doesn't have it as much. They're concerned, but they don't have the kind of emotional, almost hysterical fear that, let's say, the Japanese would have
No.
because of the history. Same with particularly Europe, because the United States, they understand the United States in effect can take care of itself.
Yes.
Well, their biggest fear, and I've all along, ever since NATO was formed, and the first SecGen, I forget his name, some British guy, their biggest fear was always that the United States at some point
Would
would
leave. Yeah. Would leave. Yeah. Yeah.
and this is what is happening. So the entire WEF forum this year was literally, it was like, that it wasn't even like a strategizing session. It was that session of validation session where
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
ladies like to do this, where if they feel something, they look for somebody to talk to so that they feel
Oh, yeah, yeah. The emotional check-in circle that the feminists talk about all the time. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
this was more like that.
yeah, yeah. So they need to download on somebody. So yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah,
And of course, Scotty and and Trump and Jamie Dimon
yeah,
showed up, and there are a lot of eyebrows raised.
yeah.
So, for example, the lady who was interviewing Jamie, like the head of the Economist lady, she's extremely Sorosian
Yeah.
in her dispensation, like to the point where a lot of people can't stand her, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, she would be like your Samantha Power
Ooh. Okay. Okay.
mixed with a dose of maybe Michelle or Susan Powell. Something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Yes, and then add the Becky flavor on top, right? The Karen flavor, sorry, the Karen flavor on top. She's one of those ones. And within the side events, because normally the forums like these speeches is where that's for the press, that's for different audiences, and then the real stuff happens in like those rooms and sometimes in like
Oh yeah,
lobbies
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
stuff.
Oh yeah, the mixers and stuff like that where they get
Those
together.
mixers
Yeah,
or
yeah,
side events or stuff
yeah.
like that.
So what we get is the what actually leaks out, what rises to the top and leaks out. So we're not getting
Yes,
everything, but we get a hint.
yes, we get
Yeah.
there. It's the aggregation.
Yes.
And so yeah, and you could tell they could not wait for particularly Jamie, because they expected Jamie to be on the other side, to be more like oh, let's condemn Trump, is Trump
Yeah,
crazy?
yeah, yeah. That I saw that they were trying to get him to get on the record and choose their
Yes,
side, much like Carney did. Yeah,
yes, oh my God, can you tell us what's wrong with him? Is he
yeah,
getting
yeah, yeah,
stuff?
yeah. Yeah. In other
Because
words, we need you on our side, so you got to commit. Okay.
yes,
Yeah,
and it makes sense, because for the longest time Jamie has been one of them, right?
yeah, yeah. Still
um
is. He just
it still
disagrees.
is.
Yeah,
But even Jamie understands like two things. Number one, there's from what I got anyway, there's like the level of respect has gone down, because even people like Jamie understand the quality of engagement is not as good as it used to be, right?
yeah,
So compared to Valdai Discussion Club or Shanghai Corporation,
yes,
you will get a very different take, or
yeah,
APEC,
yeah,
where he normally sends people if he doesn't go himself. Yeah, it's a completely different momentum, very different mood.
yeah.
The language of possibilities has shifted, whereas this other side is more like it's all Trump, 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 Trump.
Yeah, because these are the people that used to have the final say
Exactly.
in affairs. They get together, they had the final say. They don't have the final say anymore, which is why the one guy said that they're going to have to struggle for relevance again because they're not what they used to be.
Yeah, and that's normally most of my European focused work
Hmm.
is to try and
Good luck.
give them a bit of strategic insight here and there, nudging.
A dose of reality, huh?
Yeah, because that's like ultimately beneath all this stuff is what you said, is the fear of irrelevance for the
Yes,
first time
yes,
in their collective memory,
yes,
right? Because even during the unipolar moment, Europe continued to have tremendous influence,
yes.
because the Washingtonian establishment is very connected to the European establishment
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, it was. Yeah.
So,
Partners in crime. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And a lot of people in the permanent state in
Hmm.
Washington
Yeah.
still have those connections, but like you said, the Joker is in town.
Yes.
and he's
Yes.
dealing with Batman and I don't know who else, right?
Yeah.
In other words, we have particularly three black pill, very
Yeah.
very black pill, very dark, you know,
So,
what do you call it? Figureheads.
it could be China's playing the Dark Knight. Well, I don't know.
Yes, exactly. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
and we know the Russians are not going anywhere.
No, no. They tried, and that ship failed. But and they know it. But the thing is, they're hoping right now. Now they're praying that something will turn.
Yeah, but Russia's on the rebound,
Yes.
right? So there's a resurgent Russia. Because there's this European thing where they used to think, this language, it's a very funny way they use language. They used to say, Russia is this declining great power, declining
Yes.
great.
Yes. Yeah.
But they focused on the declining and they forgot the great power. Right?
Yes.
So now all these things are happening, and it's as if we're going to an exam, right? And let's say you got a leak of the questions.
Yeah.
And then you figure out 5 minutes before exam time that the questions are switched up.
Yes. Yeah.
So
So your cheat sheet is no longer valid. Yeah.
exactly, and that's the only game plan, right?
Yeah.
Because Africa is gone for the most part.
Yeah.
Particularly the places they want.
Yeah.
That's gone. And for Europe, they don't have the primary or secondary means of influencing events. So this WEF was just about, basically that, emotional circling and, try to see if they have some allies in the US system, which they realized, the US is thinking very differently. And
Yeah.
they have this self-contained attitude where they're like, we're not going to engage the East. So
I think they the United States done the math and said the old European powers are too expensive to maintain, and I think had they gone along with Trump and actually settling the Ukraine war, I think Trump would have a different opinion of them. But the thing, since they didn't, and they want to go their own path, Trump is saying, okay, well, you do your own thing.
yeah, and also a lot of these elites, they're paying the price for going after him for so long, right? Like
Yes.
the BBC, for example, what Trump, Trump got them to beg first, and then after begging, he was like, "I'm now slapping you with is it $1 billion lawsuit or something like that?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he knows that they didn't want him to be president and they were against him. So
Exactly.
he's got a long memory. But
Exactly.
I think had they gone along with him and actually stopping the Ukraine war and settling the Gaza war, I think that would have gone a long way. He wouldn't be as adamant as he is right now.
No, because at the end of the day, they're all Europeans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're white. Yeah. So
At the end of the day, yeah.
yeah. As Mark Carney tried to really say, okay.
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
Yes.
Outside of the cameras, that's effectively what he was saying.
Yes. Yeah. We white people got to sit together, and Trump was on some other, how to say, bullshit, and so
Yes.
since he's on some bullshit, we have to come together and find another path because we're not going to defeat China separately. Okay.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They can't, and some of it is also kind of like, throwing the Hail Mary, because even those assumptions they had were a bit strange, because we're saying we'll huddle together until we wait for maybe the next Democrat.
Yeah. That's a long. That's 3 years is a long time. With the stuff that's going on right now, that's a long time.
Exactly. So it's like hold the pressure. Internally within Europe, there's all sorts of, they're trying to consolidate as much as they can to basically weather the storm, because they see Trump as an aberration, which is what they don't it's always interesting to me because they see all these things as
Okay.
personal to Trump,
Okay. Yeah, they do.
right?
They do. I can tell.
They don't see it as a structural shift in the international system.
Oh, they don't accept it. They think that it's a hurdle they can get over. In other words, it's just a barrier, one more thing in the way of us continuing our dominance. That's what they believe. If we can get through and actually collapse um, Russia or collapse Iran, which Iran is part of the three-legged stool. If we can actually get to Iran, we can actually get the Middle East back and get the show back on the road, which is why they cheered, Trump taking over Venezuela. If
No,
if
but
he if he can do that, and he can actually get regime change in Iran, maybe we can salvage some of this stuff.
no, what I'm saying is they actually, a lot of them don't actually see it. It's like you say,
Really?
there's some who see it and don't believe it.
Okay.
And there are those I was just giving last week a quick tutorial on BRICS. What is
Okay.
BRICS?
Yeah.
And these people are people who make decisions at a very high level. So that's when I'm like, wow. Well, at this late in the game, you still don't know what BRICS is.
Their worldview won't let it in. It's like, okay,
Exactly.
it can't,
Exactly.
it's like Yoda picking up the X-wing out of the lake, right, out of the swamp.
Yes.
Okay, even though he looked at him, lifted up, and put it right in front of you, I don't believe it. Okay, which is why
Exactly.
you fail. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's what they're
That's what
going
I
through
mean
right
when
now.
I say they don't see it. It's not because they're not smart or they're not technical or anything like that.
Yeah.
They can see the pieces. But they can't see it. They like what you said, what you just described. They just can't see
Yeah. Their worldview won't let it in.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting when you have these kinds of side meetings, and they're like, oh, this is just a thing. Some people are telling me, yeah, this is just an basically an oil supply thing, or
Yeah.
well, we can just
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. Or
It's always
a
reversing.
or a system like the BRICS system, economic system. They think that it's shoddy, it's not going to work, it's going to fall flat, and we're going to go back to the way things were. Okay, and it hasn't, and I think they're still stunned that it's real.
Yeah, this a lot of them are still thinking, well, this is just a ragtag thing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's it's a very interesting space. Whenever that's why I said this is more psychological than factual, technical.
You know what? When it comes to worldview, and I've been in the pro-black sector for a long time, and sometimes I'm like you. I'm getting tired of bucking against people's worldview. Okay, even though you show them the facts and the evidence on the ground, they won't let the information in. They just won't.
No, I mean, just yesterday, France tried to do something in Mali. Just yesterday.
Yeah, I believe it.
Still,
yeah.
So, so, but anyway, so the thing was, this was more like an emotional huddling session, really.
Yeah, I can see it, man, because they're, like I said, I wasn't there, and you probably around these people all the time, man. And what I'm saying, I have never seen. I'm looking at shock in their faces, like okay, this what they're facing right now is real, okay, and they don't know how to deal with it, like it can't be real, okay. We've been in power for so long, and we are the people that run the world, and all of a sudden they're saying that we don't. What are you talking about? Yes, we do. We still do. It's just a matter of convenience, and we, with a few wars and assassinations, and maybe some money being paid, we can get the show back on the road, and
Yep. And also, this is also coming at the back of the two shocks, which was the Starlink and the Oreshnik. So much at the front of their mind, and what they were hoping for was for again craziness. the expectation going to the meetings were like, we're going to get to convince the Americans that, you see, these people are these nasty, unhinged people, and get some influential like Jamie's, like Scott, a lot of people in the State Department to get them on their side, but.
Well, you know, the James and Scotts and you know, people like BlackRock, man. They can't afford to not see reality because it costs them money.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because sorry, for the Europeans, is like they've never really understood or accepted that because the United States has, you know, a lot of experience in great power dynamics, so it's easier for Washington to see these things, even though, you know, we have problems accepting it, but at least they can see them much better. They are far more clear-eyed when it comes to international systems, global politics, global power politics, and things like that, you know, with the experience of the Cold War in particular. For the Europeans, they don't have that, right? And the people who used to have sensitivities to that are gone, right? Willy Brandt and Helmut Kohl.
Because they went through the World War II and the Cold War, so they've seen it personally. So they have an experience with it. But the with the people that are boomers and younger, man, they haven't seen it. They haven't seen it this way.
No,
and you can tell. You can tell.
Yes. So for Europe, it's very strange when they see the U.S. moving in ways that they don't understand. You know? They're like, and you know, Europeans always have this enlightened attitude, and they're like, you know, we need to enlighten the Americans a little bit more. You know?
Oh well, you know, the old fashioned, what do you call it, manifest destiny. Yeah.
So it was interesting even to see some of the, you know, the private sector players grappling with the same issues. It was fascinating to see. So I'm actually doing a lot of something similar to master classes going into the next 3 months.
What has surprised me is, it's not like these people aren't educated. It's not like they're not smart. It's not like they're not experienced. The thing is, the stuff that's going on right now, I thought I would never see. I thought they were much more sophisticated and smarter than this. And I'm starting to believe that their ideology is so strong that they can't get past it. That's what has shocked me over the past, I would say, since past 5 years. Even under COVID, I was shocked. I said, with their responses, like, you guys are the people, the insiders that actually create this kind of stuff, and y'all don't get it. It's like it's kind of shocked me. So maybe I'm jaded. I'm starting to get jaded that these people are what I thought they were.
Yeah, that's kind of what Carney had to painfully admit. In a roundabout way. But it's a Western radicalization. You know, all these things, you can take it back to, you know, Hobbes, Hegel, Kant. Those pillars of Western thought.
I mean, if you really read Hobbes and Kant and Rousseau and people like that, and really read them,
exactly.
Instead of giving, you know, the cliff notes that a lot of people use, they said, they meant something completely different. Like Hobbes, Hobbes would talk about the Leviathan and how people escape barbarism through coming together and having this the so-called state. People don't realize that the Leviathan is the state. That runs really most of these countries. And they don't understand what he meant by that. So when I read it, I said, I immediately got what he's saying. And a lot of people said, you know, the Leviathan or the state calls balls and strikes and determines what your rules are. And if you're going to change anything, you got to change it.
Exactly. And that whole thing about what he was talking about war against all, right?
Yes.
Which is what we are seeing right now.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. We've gone up the scale. It used to be man against nature, man against his opposition, and now man against man against himself. I think it's like man against himself right now. So
Exactly,
we've
exactly.
gone to that level. Yeah.
So if you add all these things, you end up with effectively what would be a radicalized collective.
Yes. Oh yeah, well, yeah, that's happening. Well, that happens during the shift, man. Okay, they've been trying to prove quickly wrong for the last 60 years, and
Like you said, manifest
yeah,
destiny.
man,
We
that's
are,
what they thought they could become the universal empire and rule for 1,000 years, and that is not the case. Okay,
yes,
it's not
and
the case.
because of this capability, and this is where they kind of fell into the trap of their own success because,
Hmm.
um, and you can see even now, a lot of these points were basically being repeated about this idea that we thought with the strength of will, technology,
Hmm.
private capital, whatever,
Right, right, exactly.
um, we can escape, we can bend history.
Yes,
We're not the Romans. We are more powerful than the Romans.
yes,
We have
yeah,
this. We have Swift. We have
yeah.
money like
We
this business. We
we
have
all
tech.
these ironclad institutions. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and these ashes and you
And
know,
the dirty foots. Yeah,
and the dirty foots.
yeah.
Don't do anything until the bear and the dragon teamed up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And they basically they forced the bear and the dragon together.
Yes,
If you listen to what's his name Sachs says that. Okay, um, it was
yes,
unintentional, but the thing is they forced Russia into that position. So, and China took
yes,
advantage of it.
yes. And in fact, I know somebody. Well, it's dangerous to say, but let's put it this way. Um, it's well established now that the biggest mistake they made was what Khrushchev did to basically separate himself from the Chinese. Yeah.
Oh
That's
yeah.
a very bad thing, well, for the West at least. It's
Yes.
very bad because it's one thing to say, well, it was fine, we're together, but it's another thing to have the two, quote unquote antagonists
Hmm.
realize, oh, this guy played us.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a very,
I mean, Kissinger took advantage of the dispute between the Chinese Khrushchevs and
yes,
Mao. Okay, he took advantage of it. Okay,
yes,
and the United States got a windfall, a good 60-year
yes,
windfall out of it. Okay, but thing is, their mistake was after Gorbachev and Perestroika
mm,
and the
mm,
fall of the Soviet Union. Okay, they could have. And Sachs said the same thing. They could have allowed Russia to be European, which was something they were actually asking for, and they decided to actually turn loose the carpetbaggers on Russia. Okay,
exactly, exactly.
and
That's the Western mistake.
that
That's
was
not
it was a
Russian.
very Western mistake because they
Yeah.
thought they thought that they thought that Russia had no help. Okay,
Yes,
because the Chinese and the Russians were actually antagonistic.
yes,
But the Chinese said, okay, for us, he said the same thing Carney is saying. Okay, okay, we can't beat these people unless we come together.
yeah,
And what is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay, and they said, okay, if you have the might because you still have military might, you got nukes, you got ships, you got all this kind of stuff that we don't. Okay, and there's no way that we can, without the military might that you have, we can actually defeat these people and not be overtaken. So, so they combine, Chinese put a lot of money, a lot of gold to get Russia out of hock. They really did.
oh yes, yes, I
Yeah,
know that, and
yeah.
also because
Uh huh.
at an informal level,
Mhm.
see the emphasis, particularly for Washington and London, Brussels, was always on the differences, but at a
Mhm.
functional economic level,
Mhm.
because these are regional countries. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
there was a lot of interconnectivity in the 90s, 2000s, right?
Yes.
That was not being captured, or at least not being given enough importance in the analysis.
It was, but they didn't think it would get that far. Which is why what
No.
is it? What is it? The neocons and was it PNAC formed? Okay, because remember, was it 94, 95 when Russia and China formed the SCO, Shanghai Cooperative, and I think it was 95. Okay, and then right after that, you got Besant and Soros attacking uh, the Asian currencies, actually get to Hong Kong and get to the strip China of its economic power. That didn't work.
No,
And
what I'm talking about is
oh,
something
good.
different. I'm not
Okay,
talking
go
about
ahead.
that. What I'm talking about is
Hmm.
cross-border, like informal economic exchange between the Chinese and the Russians
Yeah.
in the eastern side. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about like SEO and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but even then, with that one, because I spoke to Mearsham about this,
Hmm.
and he always used to advise and underplay
Yeah.
the potential of those relationships.
Yeah. Because in his
Because
opinion,
they thought,
it was too small and too colloquial. Okay.
yes, and the
Yeah.
first point of
To make a
reference
difference.
was,
Yeah.
oh, they had this war. There are always these differences.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
These are regional
Yeah.
powers who have coexisted for
Yeah.
thousands of.
Yeah. In other words, there's no way they can come together and actually form a union.
Yes,
And it shocked and
yes,
it stunned them when they actually did.
yes,
Yeah, and which
yes,
is which is why you got people, which is why you all the modern Middle East wars are not because of the Middle East or Israel as we call it. It's because of that thing with China and Russia coming
yes,
together. Okay, that's
yes,
really what it's for.
yes.
Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly, and that's where the the panic.
Hmm.
It's precious to see. I wish you could see it.
Well, hey, you know what, Doc? I would love to see it, but the thing is, okay, I want to live a few years longer. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. See, you've been vetted and they know you and they trust you, but somebody like me and say, you know what? We've been wanting to get rid of him for a long time, and now he knows way too much. He's already a smart ass with the little that he knows. He's already a smart ass. Okay, to get inside information. Oh no. That's why. Yeah.
No, yeah,
With the little stuff, I'm probably too smart for my own good. Right now because I'm taking just the crumbs and putting them together into whole loaves, and they don't like that. Okay,
no.
they
Yeah,
don't
even
like
I have
that.
to tread
They, they,
carefully.
oh no. I know what that's why some things I say out loud, some things I don't. Okay.
Exactly.
It's
I
just like the
completely
thing with
understand.
that's like the thing with the silver. I said, I know what this is. Okay, so I saw it.
Mm.
Oh, I know what this, but nobody was saying it out loud. I said, oh, I know what this is. And I said,
Mm.
you can trace it back. I know I can. That's why I went back. I can trace it all the way back. You know where this came from? Okay, because they could have done this a long time ago. Why now? So, and now they're starting to, how it is. Yeah, how y'all are, man. If a Dusty Jermaine comes up with it, that he said it first. Okay, when it's already out there, I might as well go ahead and say it too.
Did you have some document?
No comment.
Go ahead, James. And we got
Yeah.
about 30. We got about 30 more minutes before we get
Okay.
out
I
of
had
here. Yeah.
a question
Yeah,
for both
yeah.
of you.
No, go ahead.
And Dr. Marifa. Dr. Marifa, obviously you were there. What was the overall sentiment? Obviously before Trump obviously before he came, and what was the sentiment after he left when it came to the World Economic Forum?
Um. Well, I guess it was like if you imagine like those color schemes they used to grade like bushfire risk or something like that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And then you have red and you have extremely red.
Okay. Yeah.
So before Trump came in, he was already on the red.
Yes.
So it was just a question of how bad is it?
Yeah.
Because they've not really had it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, they got confirmation when Trump gave
So
his
they got
speech. Yeah,
confirmation,
yeah,
and
he had the balls to come up in middle of Davos and put his dick on the table. Okay,
exactly,
And like I said, I've been watching them for 20 years. I've never seen, even Xi didn't come in and put his dick on the table like that.
No.
I've never seen that before, and I know you can tell by the reaction to the dollar, okay, where they start, Europe started dumping the dollar right after that because the dollar
Yes.
went down like 4 days in a row, boop 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 boop, and
Yes.
and the euro and the pound went up. So that's because of his speech. So
Yes.
they like I said, they didn't like him to begin with before he got there, but I think with his speech and his attitude, I think that gives them confirmation.
BGS. I haven't been a fan of Mark Carney, but yeah, just listening to that speech because I didn't listen to it beforehand.
Yeah.
I'm actually really surprised. Like he held his nuts there. I'm surprised.
I am not. He had, like you said, that's why he gave that story about communism and socialism and the shopkeeper putting the sign in the window. Okay, in other words, going along to get along. And he said it takes one guy to take the sign out of the window for everybody else to follow suit. That's what he was saying. Okay, in other words, nobody else will say it, but I'm going to say it. Okay.
And as you mentioned earlier, like it's amazing that they actually brought up the topic of him being a globalist. Like he actually worked at the Bank of Canada as well.
Yeah, yeah, but but the thing, he's attached to Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs is an international, hedge fund basically, okay, and
Powerful institution
very
worldwide.
powerful institution worldwide. So that tells you where his sensibilities are. So, and sometimes you get people that can actually go against it, but for the most part, he's a globalist, okay.
Yeah.
And Trump, in my opinion, and Doc, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is an isolationist. Trump is not a globalist, okay?
No. It is not.
He leans toward isolationism, and which is the difference between him and Biden.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have another follow-up question for both of you gentlemen.
Go ahead.
With that being said, what do you think was the turning point for Trump to say we need to become more isolationist? And then two, do you think if the previous administration didn't do what they did with the stealing, would that change the outlook if Trump?
Yeah, I think so because Trump has different cards to work with, and I think as far as the economic piece and the terror, I don't think he would have picked Bessent as the Treasury Secretary if you didn't have this disruption in the economic system. In other words, there would be no BRICS bank. There really would be no BRICS coalition like this if Biden doesn't do what he did to the Russians. If Zelensky had signed that peace agreement and the Russians had taken the tanks and gone back home, you probably would have gone back to the status quo. Because China believes in taking the longer road, okay, and I think when Biden did that, it accelerated the BRICS plan because I don't think that the Chinese were confident that this scheme would actually work because all the details hadn't been worked out yet, and they forced them to put it out there. And the thing is, I think the Chinese were just as shocked that the shit worked as everybody else was, and it worked so well that now it's a juggernaut. Now they're not going to give it up because now it's proven that it does work. And I think it shocked everybody, including the Chinese, that it works so well. So in my opinion, Dr. Brief might have a different opinion. I think you would get a different Trump. In fact, I don't think Trump would even be in office if Biden had done what he did. I think Biden would have been a one-term president because he couldn't run anymore. They had a different group of people running for president. I don't think Trump would have been an issue had Biden not done what he did. I could be wrong.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree on that analysis. You're spot on because, it's funny because for a long time, amongst the other powers anyway. The United States was always this question, right? This question mark.
Yeah.
But, like, for example, the Chinese remember the bombing of their embassy in Kosovo?
Mm-hmm.
In the Bosnian War, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, the Russians remember Kosovo, etc., Chechnya, and things like that. But when the G20 opportunity came up, and I know this, they were far more willing to invest what you see now in BRICS,
Right.
in that structure, because they saw that as a sort of a mechanism of reforming the international system and balancing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the United States and the West would still, okay, you can keep your semblance of primacy, you can feel
Yeah,
good, that's
yeah. You keep
live and let live.
as long as the dollar's working, it can be the
Yes,
reserve currency, and we'll pay your little 10% tax on the usage, and because it's too much trouble to
yeah,
actually destabilize it. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
and they're far more willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And but like you say, rightly so, when the Biden administration accelerated the plan,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because they knew eventually this was going to come.
Yes, it was.
But
Yeah.
Biden basically decided, okay, I'm for whatever reason, he has his reasons, but I'm being impatient. I'm going to do it now. This is the time to pull the trigger.
I think Hillary Clinton would have pulled the trigger if she had been elected earlier, but I think since Trump disrupted that, they said we have to go now, or either now or never, because especially after COVID, I think they saw an opportunity. It's actually now or never, because these people are only going to get stronger. So if we're going to do this particular plan, we got to do it now. And
Exactly.
so I think they pushed up the Chinese timetable by 15, 20 years, Doc. Would you give or take? What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, about that time. Yeah.
Yeah, because
You're right.
I think the Chinese were looking for like 2035, 2040 to actually enact
Yeah.
this kind of
Yeah.
structure, and and so
And I agree.
they had to roll it out before it was ready. And trust and believe, in my opinion, the BRICS, the BRICS infrastructure as we see it now, they're building it as they fly. Okay, they're
Yes.
flying the plane as they build it right now.
Yeah, and just to tack on to your point there,
Hmm.
because the Chinese were playing for post 2050,
Yes,
right?
yes, they were.
So by 2040, when actually, officially they say 2045, but actually it was
Yeah,
about 2038,
yeah,
and then they have that 10-year testing time. But
yeah.
also, a lot of this, I have to give a lot of shout outs to the Russians, because the Russians really pushed from 2022 to 2024, really pushed. I've been working double time
Hmm.
to set up a sort of mechanism that would boost up and improve what the Chinese had.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But they had their own payments. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think that's out of survival. They had to,
yes,
because the digital yuan and the BRICS currency wasn't moving fast enough, and they needed it now. So they had
yes,
to make their own.
exactly.
They had to make their own deals. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. And
yeah,
so they did a lot of heavy lifting.
yeah. They did.
That's why BRICS, in terms of its meetings,
Yeah, yeah,
for the last, when did Brazil? India is having it this time. Brazil
yeah,
last year, the year before,
yeah,
the two
yeah.
years before were, solidly around the question of sorting out this payment system. But as you say, they're building as they fly, which is why
Hmm.
they they tend to not stretch themselves too much when it comes to which conflict to get involved in, which ones to
Yeah,
not,
yeah, yeah.
because it's too much. They don't have
Like,
the
like,
projection of the United States
yeah,
yet.
like Venezuela was too much. Okay, there was
Yeah, they can't do that.
they couldn't do it. So, whereas they
Iran
could
was a
do,
different story.
yeah, they could do it with Africa. They could do that with Wagner in Africa because
Hmm. Hmm.
it was closer, it was easier. They had the connections, and that's where Europe and America was actually weak.
Yes.
So they took advantage of that. and
Yes, and it's very asymmetrical. So you
mm,
do this,
mm,
maybe something happens to your silver. Who knows? I don't.
mm.
You do something
Yeah,
happens somewhere. You know.
yeah. We'll probably have to talk about that one tomorrow, Doc.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that's
But I knew, I knew what it was. I knew what it was when I saw it, and
yes,
I
yes.
knew, and I knew why Trump did what he did. And I know why what happened the last couple of days with the with the with the so-called banks getting in the middle of silver and driving the price down, the paper prices down.
Oh
This is
yeah,
going to be an ongoing battle. So
oh yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it's
So
gonna be very interesting. Okay, um,
like you said, I heard in your stream one time when you said, sorry to interrupt.
go ahead. Yeah.
You said, there's always that knife behind the back, because okay,
There is.
or something along those lines.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, and that's what keeps getting all these guys, almost catching them by surprise all the time, because
Yeah,
they don't expect responses, and when the responses happen, like Starlink,
yeah.
all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, this thing! We thought we are the only ones doing this. How did they do it? What the hell is going on?"
The thing is
You know?
they know the Russians could do it, but they didn't think the Iranians would actually allow the
No.
Russians to do it, and they got shocked. Okay,
Yeah,
and
or just that, like 12-day war, same thing.
yeah,
You know.
and what I heard from a couple of the realists, man, that Israel called that strike off. That's what I'm
Oh,
hearing. Yeah, I'm hearing it.
yeah, they're starting to walk it back.
If you can't do a clean decapitation, okay, and with regime change, okay, that's going to be clean, much like what happened with Venezuela. Okay, you got to call that off. But
Oh yeah.
Iran is not Venezuela. I don't know why they thought they could do it.
Well, you know how it is. Like you said, when it comes to Dusty, Ashy, Jeffries, Jamals, something happens to the psyche. Something just happens. Jinling, I don't know what to call Ricey Jinling. I don't know what to call him.
Yeah, Dirty Foot Gene Ling, yes.
Something
Yeah.
just happens to that psychology.
Oh,
Because I know they're starting to find opportunities for off ramps when South Africa, Russia, and Iran did their drills.
Yes.
Um, and then they did the second drill and in the Gulf.
Yes.
And at that point, and Trump had put a very high threshold, because I got the sense personally, it's not like he likes, I don't like using the word regime, because I anyway, the
Yeah,
connotation. But I'll just say it.
it's a negative term, but yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, it's legitimized, but he doesn't like the Iranian government or whatever. That's
Hmm.
fine. But he himself, from what I get, he's not really on board with this. So he set a very high threshold, right?
Yeah.
I can, of course, pull in assets, do all these things.
Yeah.
Of course, he's under tremendous pressure, so that
Yeah.
pressure does things to presidents for sure.
Yeah.
But the threshold was, can you guarantee success? And that's a
Yeah, because like I said, if Hezbollah is saying that Israel's easy to hit, okay,
yes,
that means they're out of they've exhausted all their air defense. Okay,
yes.
and if they're easy to hit, then basically, man, Iran's gonna have a field day with Tel Aviv, and
Oh yes.
their only option is to send up a nuke, which is something that nobody wants. Okay, even they don't want it.
No. They
I've,
know that.
You know what? And I will say this out loud, okay? If you think Iran doesn't, that Pakistan didn't give Iran a nuke, okay, you're smoking something, okay? I don't care what you say about the Ayatollahs and it's against our religion. If you threaten them with a nuke, okay,
we all
ju-
gonna die.
It's over.
they're gonna have a couple somewhere, okay, just in case, okay. So
It's over.
uh,
Yeah, at this
and
point it's
so
over.
just like in 2018, they said they didn't have no hypersonics. I said bullshit. Okay,
Mm.
okay.
Oh,
That's like I said, like what Carney said. Okay, great powers do what they can, and middle powers suffer what they must. Okay,
Yes.
Iran's got to do what it's got to do. Go ahead, James.
A
And then
follow-up
we
question.
got about 10 more minutes. And go ahead.
Follow-up question.
Hmm.
And this is pertaining to on the one on the economic piece globally, and then the second part is to Europe. So obviously we have a fractured of the global system, right? Globalization is pretty much eradicated because of the West or the
No,
United.
no, no. Globalization. Okay, as long as you got supply chains that need to go from
Yep.
one place to another, you're not gonna get rid
Yes.
of globalization. It's
Yes.
impossible to get rid of. Okay. The
Okay.
thing
Yes.
is, it's not. Uh, is quickly put it, you only have one civilization right now, which is Western. Okay, it's
Okay.
just who runs the civilization. That's right now. The Chinese are just as capitalist as the United States is with the 996. Don't believe that shit. Okay. When you
Oh,
see
yeah.
996, that is industrial capitalism all day long, going back all the way back to the slave plantation in the 17th century and the 18th century with the South. Okay, so how far this
Okay.
shit goes back. China will
Okay.
tell you we are not Marxists. Okay, they'll tell you
No,
in a
they're
heartbeat
not.
we're not Marxists.
They're not.
They're capitalist, socialist mixed economy. Okay, just like the United States is.
Okay.
So don't
Okay.
believe that shit. But thing
Okay.
is, you have a Western civilization. But thing is, who runs it?
Okay.
That's what they're. Go ahead.
So this is picking up on towards the question, right? I mean, my
Mm-hmm.
second question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Trump has the Board of Peace, and
It was something like that. Yeah.
yes, how does that play a significant role, right? Obviously, we see the blueprint of they're trying to recreate Gaza into this whatever
Mm-hmm.
island or whatever we gonna call it. How does that play a significant role to the global powers, right?
It
And
doesn't.
then,
It doesn't.
okay, and then my other part to that question is obviously with Europe self sabotaging themselves, did they think they were going to get a different outcome, especially with a nationalist such as Trump?
You know, this is my opinion. You know what I think that the Europeans are banking on. Okay, remember when World War I, when Germany basically invaded and took over France, and all of a sudden they fell apart. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
I think that's what they're banking on. And somewhere, somehow, there's a fundamental weakness in Russia, and eventually the regime in Russia will collapse of its own weight, which is what happened with Germany. But thing is, in 1918, you had the Spanish flu that was killing people. Okay, which is why Germany collapsed. Okay, you don't have that now. So, but I think that's what they're holding on to. You know, they're holding on to the same thing that happened to Germany in 1918 because Germany took over Europe and had the UK on its knees. Okay, and they just collapsed. They were in Paris. They'd taken over Paris. They had taken over the whole French country government. All of a sudden, they just collapsed and they surrendered. So I think that's what they were expecting. I fundamentally think that's what they're holding on to.
Yeah. I mean, for Europe, just to add on to what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. It's a funny thing because this beef with, let's say, the Russians, is almost like that sort of age-old tribal beef, right?
Yeah, it is.
Between siblings. You can pretty much go back even before the Crimean Wars. If you're talking about Poland, 1600, this has been a continuous thing because for Europe, Central West Europe, or let's say Europe Central, as we call it, Russia has always been that big beast. It's like having the US on your neighborhood and your
Yes.
Mexico,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. In Mexico, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Or this is, China and your like Philippines,
Vietnam. Yeah. Philippines,
Vietnam, or
Vietnam,
something.
Korea. Yeah.
You have this big presence. And for Europe, what they've constantly refused to do is to do what the ASEAN did, which is to integrate China within their sort of larger economic architecture, etc., which in
Yeah.
a way extends to this sort of security architecture, economic security architecture. For the Europeans, they've always wanted to vanquish this big presence, right? So, they didn't have any problems, for example, when the Germans engineered the revolution in 17, right? In many ways, they thought, that's why, King George appealed to his cousin, the British king, for help. And the British king basically threw him under the bus, right? And those letters are there. And so, this is kind of this attitude, this long-running attitude of antagonism was like exponentially exacerbated with basically Russia turning red. The Bolsheviks, who are like the subclass for the Western European elites, right? And with this attitude of peasants taking over this empire, and they were sending all these delegations, White Army, to support the White Armies, and so this has been an ongoing sort of wrangle that today is taking the shape that it's taking. But for Europe, what it has done is it has put them in this position where they have antagonized all the great powers at the same time, which is what you really don't want to do. So, they're having an uneasy relationship with the US. The Russians, the fundamentals are underpinning the Russian structure are much stronger than they expected. So Russia bounced back. And Russia also is a very resilient country because they've gone through these pressures for long. I mean, look at what Napoleon did to the Russian army was insane, right?
Yeah.
They bounced back, with Kutuzov and all these guys.
And financially, they're short-stopped by the biggest economic power on the planet, which is China.
Exactly, right? And then, there you go. Reverse Napoleon, right?
Well, no, the thing is, when they fought with Napoleon, they were out there by themselves. But the thing is, they actually wanted to collapse Russia financially, okay, because they couldn't do it militarily.
Exactly.
But the thing is, they believed that the Chinese structure would not work. Okay, that's what they believed.
Yeah.
They rolled the dice. Okay, even if they came in to help them, it's not going to work.
It's not going to work. And also they thought.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. And also they thought that if you look at like your example of the Germans, right, in the 1918 period, what they had another thing that exacerbated the German collapse was, they had managed to blockade Germany. So for about 2 or 3 years, Germany was under tremendous pressure. And Germany is this sort of central European power that's very dependent on supply chains outside of Europe.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to blockade, right? So if you cut off the North Sea, which the British did, cut off the Mediterranean, and, you pretty much have Germany boxed in. So they thought, even in today's times, they thought Russia was very isolated. That's why, remember, I think it was St. Petersburg conference or something like that. When I used to get all these emails saying, why are African leaders why is the South not sanctioning Russia? Even today, they still.
They thought that they had the.
Yes, Russia was this toxic radioactive.
Well, they thought that we had convinced the Africans that they were white. Hey, you know what it is what it is, man. And the thing is, and I think that if the United States go back in time, okay, there's two things they would have done, which is what Colin Powell told them they should do. Okay, give the African Americans their reparations, send them over there, and have them help rebuild Africa, and keep them out of China and Russia's hands. I think if they could go back in time, they'd have done that. But the thing is, you can't go back in time. They said, okay, well, they had their belief that, okay, the Dusty Germains and the Ashley Jeffreys will not inherit the earth. Okay.
You sound like the Book of Eli, right?
which um, which I'm sure was proposed. Okay, give the African
Yes.
Americans that because it'd been cheap compared to what they spent because they spent like $25 trillion with the over the last 25 years doing what they've been doing here. Okay, they could have
Yes.
give they could have give the black folks 4 trillion dollars in a sovereign wealth fund, and sent them and basically sent them most of the black folks back to the continent with that money and rebuilt Africa, and kept them out
You'd
of the
have,
Chinese hands.
yeah,
Okay,
you'd have won the continent.
because the Africans wanted African Americans with money to come over and help them develop. Okay, they didn't want the Chinese to help them develop. They wanted African Americans to come over and do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because out of all the people on the planet, okay, they could trust, they thought we had a better heart for them. So, and they told Colin Powell to go kick rocks, and that's what happened. That's what AFRICOM was actually built for African Americans to come over there and I won't say rule, but administer the continent. And white
Yeah,
folks and the Europeans didn't trust African Americans to do that. That's like it never happened. And
yeah,
because
yeah.
I talked to people on the continent. They said they always ask me, how come y'all don't do it instead of the Chinese? Okay, how come y'all don't do it? How come you guys don't come over and say, y'all don't know what we up against, man? If we could, we would.
Mm,
The thing is,
yeah.
we're not
So,
allowed to. Okay, but go ahead.
yeah.
I have a,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead, James.
No, I had a question for Dr. Marie, both of you guys. Dr. Marifa, with the trade agreement, or trade, the immigration
And
agreement
we got 5 more minutes, but go ahead.
with, I think it was with the India
Mm.
allowing X amount of immigrants into Europe. I've noticed on X there's a massive backlash. What was the purpose of that? Knowing there's also, an immigrant situation in the European countries. Is that because of the
It's a birth
birth?
rate. It is
Okay.
demographics, the birth rate. If you go back, Dr. Reed probably can look it up. I think it was a UN thing back in 2002, 2003 that said Europeans were going to have to import like 600 million people into Europe to balance
Oh,
out
yeah,
the
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
balance out the demographic thing going on. Um,
You know what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was right around then that when they actually published that. It could be wrong, but I think that but that's why they did it. It's not because they wanted to. Same thing that the reason Biden tried the TPS stuff in importing
Yeah.
uh, immigrants here is to actually create more taxpayers. Okay,
Yes.
um, because of the low birth rates. So I
Yes.
I, I think in fact Trump said the exact same thing about I think Trump and Besant said the same thing about the negative thing about trying to fix your problems with immigration. So there's been a back and forth about that about immigration stuff like that. And I think sometimes I think they blew up countries just to get those people to leave where they are and come to Europe. In fact, um, it was just something I was just talking to my girl a couple of days ago, right in Kenya, and they're still pissed about the 250 thousand engineers that they took from Kenya and sent them to Germany. They're still kind of pissed off about that. So.
Ah, Ruto. Ruto Gen
Yeah, Ruto and E70 have a Gen Z problem right now, but that's we'll talk about that
Yeah,
behind the wall. Okay. Yeah.
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 But just to go back to that Russia point,
Mhm.
you're right. Like the bet was like it's always about the assumptions before the action, right?
Mhm.
The assumptions that the Russians are basically, to use John McCain's words, right, gas station nuclear weapons.
Mhm.
Number one is they thought this was the Russia of the 90s. The decayed, Russia. Number one. So
Yeah.
number two, and they underestimated their economic fundamentals, their political fundamentals. They didn't know anything about that stuff.
Mhm.
And the second thing is they assumed Russian isolation, right? Oh, the Chinese would not come in, or the southern, or Russia would not pivot south. And if they did, we own the south.
Right.
they thought they owned the South.
Yes.
I mean, up to now, I still ask the question, for example, why Africans allowing China to be in Africa? And I'm like, this late, you should have asked me that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Not
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But they still ask that question, which tells you where those assumptions are.
No, the Chinese been everywhere.
No. The thing is, okay, that they should have known this when the Africans walked out of the EU Lisbon summit, right? And in 2007, okay, and this has been almost 20 years. They haven't figured it out yet. That's what he's trying to say.
Yes.
Okay. Why are you still asking this question? You should know the answer already.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So, so, and the Russians are very clever because they have these old relationships with a lot of the Southern Hemisphere states anyway. And for the most part, those relationships are not antagonistic. You remember, like during the Soviet Union, they had very strong relationships with Ethiopia, Egypt, going all the way. They were, even in Kenya, they were doing stuff in Kenya in the 60s, 50s, just like, the Chinese were doing similar things under Chu and Lai and, before Deng Xiaoping. So, the Russians were clever in that pivot, because it's a very hard pivot, because a lot of the Russian elites were very European focused. They focused on Europe for the most part. And this is where the leadership, executive leadership, was very clever in the way they did it. Getting China and India on board would open up pretty much everybody else. So these moves that they did not expect, because they thought the Russians were not smart enough, or not good enough, or etc., etc.
Right.
That's why, from the Chinese perspective, the reason why, for example, they were pleasantly surprised that this payment system took off so fast, and their diplomacy, what they tried to create, which is with that sort of oil, basically oil primacy. If you get Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, and Iraq, in particular, those four, to sort of have a coordinated rapprochement in the BRICS camp, you basically have that game patterned up, right? So, they're surprised, like, oh wow, this is actually looking good, right? A lot of that was not visible to the planners, and these are not like stupid people. These are people who, after all, they created the system and maintained and extended the system that we have. So they're not, lightweight. But these things were not visible. So, when these reversals are happening, it's like, oh, how are these guys pulling rabbits out of hats? Like you said, it's a worldview thing. And so, that banking on isolation was the point I wanted to sort of also highlight on top of what you've just said, because I remember specifically having so many cross-continental delegations talking about that. How do you return this isolation? How do you reverse this trend?
Yes.
Yes. And thinking those very particularist terms.
They think you have the answer. Okay.
I do, but they'll have to pay me. They'll have to give me the
I think you had the answer, Doc. You might be tempted to give it for a very large fee. Okay.
They have to give me von der Leyen's job.
I got one more question.
Go, last question, because we got to get out of here. Go ahead.
So, Vijay, you played the video with, what's his name, Larry Fink,
Mearsheimer, yeah.
And this is pertaining to what's the name, Christine Lagarde's position on the possibility there would probably be no central banks.
Oh, that's not going to happen.
That's what I was gonna. That's what I was saying, right? Because the reason why I asked is because throughout the series of Davos, you had the crypto community, and there was, I think, one of the Frenchmen, I forget his name, who was challenging the CEO of Coinbase, saying that I trust institutional banking system versus this crypto fiasco, right?
But basically, crypto is a central bank in a sense. Okay.
So my question to you both
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is, if that was a possibility,
Mm-hmm.
the scenarios are, for that to happen, would we have to have one, a jubilee? That's one. Or is it this a possible shift where you have nations have come into an alignment?
Okay.
If that makes sense, if I'm questioning.
For a jubilee and a debt jubilee, okay, that's exactly what the because World Economic Forum's been talking about this for the last, I would say, 15 years. Okay. Okay, to have a debt jubilee, okay, what happens to the retirements and all the other pensions and all that kind of stuff that they're actually tied to it? Okay, what are you gonna do with those people? All the people that depend on this debt monetized system, right? Okay, what's gonna happen to them, right? You're gonna have to give them what?
Yeah,
You're gonna have
you have to compensate them.
universal basic income, right? Okay, debt jubilee, automation where most people get their jobs taken. Okay, it's got to be compensated with how with universal basic income. That's the only way it can actually happen. So if you see, I would say, if you see a 50% reduction in workforce, okay, that's probably what will happen. If you're gonna do if you're actually gonna do a universal basic income, we might as well do a debt jubilee and wipe out all these debts, these cross-party debts, and start fresh. Do it all at once. Go ahead and was it snatch off the bandage?
Yeah, just nuke it.
Well, yeah, because at that point, then it doesn't make any sense to actually retain all of this debt, and then the counterparty people like BlackRock and folks like that are going to have to make different deals.
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I would say because the debt can't be paid anyway, so. That's what you found out. Hell, we found out with the silver. Okay, like if what they have said about the silver ETFs and derivatives, where it's 356 to 1, it's unsustainable. Okay, and that landmine has been there for a very long time, and the Chinese could have exploited it 20 years ago. They just didn't. So why now? Okay, why are they putting pressure on it now? That's the question I would
fair
ask.
enough.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a whole bunch of stuff. Dr. Brief, you got any thoughts?
No. All I just wanted to say was, there's no way, because central banks are not just central banks are a mechanism of the Leviathan. So
yes,
you're not getting rid of them anytime soon.
And do you trust to hand over your whole economic system to an AI?
Exactly.
I'm asking you, James. Do you?
No.
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 So
I'm
there's got to be somebody in the middle, right? That's what your central banks are. Okay. So
Yes.
we have gone through the experiment of not having a central bank for the last 300 years, right? Basically, and the United States tried not to have one, and guess what? They found out we need one.
Yes.
That's what. Name me a country that's modern that doesn't have a central bank. Even some countries that are not modern, they have central banks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
Congo probably has a central bank somewhere.
They do.
There's a reason that you have it. Okay, it's a mechanism that they haven't figured out how to get around it yet. Unless you're gonna trust an AI to actually run your shit, but then they become your central bank.
Yes. Ultimately, because there's like those regulatory functions. It's a government function.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's an appendage of government, and then the money. Even some of this, like you say, BGS with the this digital currencies, etc. That seem quote unquote independent and just loose. They're not. None of them are not really, like that. At some way, shape, or form, at policy level, you're going to interface with the central bank or the Bank of International Settlements, which that's a different topic.
Yeah. Go back and read Hobbes. The Leviathan is there for a reason.
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
something it could be good, it could be bad, but thing is, it's there unless you want a king.
It's
Okay.
there. Yes.
The thing is, the Leviathan is there as a state to actually replace your chief or your king.
Yes. and to balance
Yeah, balance the power out.
things like
Yeah.
rights, power, etc.
Yeah, so basically
Function of
your
society.
Congress and your state governments are the connected, or it's called the Leviathan, which is your state government. Yeah, the big, the big thing mechanism running your whole society. So,
Exactly.
in a sense.
Big brother.
Yeah, big brother. Yeah, big brother. Literally big brother. Little big brother. All right, Doc. Closing
All right,
thoughts.
sir. No. Thank you again for the series. I think that's actually really good because the way you're repurposing your channel and bringing this stuff out. I I don't know because I'm an amateur when it comes to online productions, but
Yes. Yeah.
it seemed to me that having at least a channel in this side of the game speaking to these things
Yes.
has quite an appeal.
Yes.
Because it's not just some of the other speakers talking about it, but yeah, I found that like really good. So
Yeah.
just thank you for that. Thank you for taking the time, of course, and
No,
appreciate
and
that.
thank you for actually lending your expertise and with your behind the scenes knowledge to us. So that's it's helpful because we're here stabbing in the dark, okay, and you have a candle, but you have a light that we don't have. So
I
that
appreciate
helps.
it.
It helps
I
a lot.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's just that maybe well, I'm not saying, I'm just
No,
saying
go ahead.
try to make Mondays I mean Sundays, because your Sundays is my Monday.
Yes.
I'll try to, but if I can, I'll just let you know.
Yeah.
Normally, Saturdays are better.
Early my Saturday morning. Email me so I'll know. And
Okay.
I'll make adjustments before I put the notification out. Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Dr. Marifa, before you leave out, thank you for coming through and sharing your knowledge. Like, I wanted to ask you a few questions, but you guys were going so well, I didn't want to interrupt. So I was like, I'll just listen.
You got one. What's your top one? You can answer that one. What's your most important one?
Well, I mean, the questions I want to ask, like, it's probably best for Patreon, and I don't want him to answer on here, get you in trouble, and also like for free, So
okay,
yeah.
All right, no problem. All right, good people. We're out of here, and
Thank you again, gentlemen. Thanks
for coming, and
thank you.
I hope this stuff is helpful. Okay, to you guys. Okay, because I want to give you guys a broader perspective of how the world actually works, and I've been telling people about the World Economic Forum for the last 20 years, and very few people actually go look. That's why I wanted to show it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You wonder. Okay. You're guessing about what these people want and what they're doing, and they're sitting in front of an audience and letting you know exactly what they think and what they feel, and you guys are not paying attention. Okay. So that's why I did it. Okay. So straight from the horse's mouth. You don't have to guess. Okay. Carney, Jamie Dimon, Trump, straight from his mouth. Okay. With no guessing. And Trump was very candid. Okay. And I can say that. Okay. He wasn't pulling punch. He was extremely candid. Besant was extremely candid. Okay, they weren't doing political dodging. They were extremely candid because they're in front of their own peers, so they're much more relaxed. Okay, and you notice that Carney got a standing ovation where Trump got silence. That was funny.
Yeah.
That was funny.
I'll tell you this, BGS. Carney did that.
I'll tell you this, BGS.
Yes, sir.
The reaction to Scott was far stronger than even Trump himself. No, you can 2 shots of gin for guessing why.
Oh, hilarious. Okay. We live in interesting times, folks. We really do. All right, good people. Goodbye. I'll see you guys maybe tomorrow, maybe Sunday. We'll see. Okay.
All right.
Email me, Doc.
All right.
All right.
No problem.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
I'm gonna give you the African, since we're doing politics. Okay.
And with that, I just have 2 more words to say. Obama out.
I talked to my girl, and she said she would vote for him if he ran for president of Kenya.
Музыка Денис Шида.